Hi, welcome to the bathtub. It is I, the old masturbator. This is the special Whiskery. This is the Whiskery May 1st edition. We're wearing the whiskers in honor of, I don't know, Lenin? I don't know. We got whiskers going on here. Joe Hill. Joe Hill have whiskers? Anyway, this is May Day. It's a good day to support the Shadowing Nebulas organization we call ACMA. Amazon and the Washington Post can kiss my ass. That's the Shadowing Nebulas organization that exists at the periphery of our understanding, much like a Pynchonian conspiracy. And it suggests that you buy your books from anyone but Amazon and buy your local books. Buy from your local bookstore, or if you can't find a local bookstore, and it's not easy to do these days, we go online, we go buy at bookshop.org, and for secondhand books, they're pretty good. They're a little, things you have to worry about with them is they put these horrible stickers on the books, but betterworldsbooks.com, you can get pretty good secondhand books there. Okay, I'm sure they sell everything that we talk about. We don't talk about anything outre or obscure. This is part 2 of our book, our just basically pointless chat about Thomas Pynchon's wonderful, hilarious, funny last novel, most recent novel. We can say it's his most recent novel, not his last novel, but Bleeding Edge. It's from 2013. I read it about 2015. I just reread it, finished it a couple days ago, had a hell of a good time with it. There's a lot of reasons. Even the late books of Pynchon are pretty complicated. Even though narratively he's just got it all together. I mean, I don't think he had those first 3 novels. I don't know what he was doing half the time. The sentences didn't make any sense. He really seems to have read a lot of books. I think I must have read some Elmore Leonard in there somewhere, or some Ross Thomas. It's got a lot of that kind of that immediate narrative excitement on the page and in the scenes. And so anyway, we loved it. It's about like everything of Pynchon's. It's about this huge conspiracy, which is possibly owned by one man. I think his name's Gabriel Ice, or his last name's Ice, which is pretty prophetic. And he's some super billionaire, Elon Musk, Bezos type person who starts out as a nice guy and then may be involved in all the companies that are buying up the internet and the interweb and all the regulatory agencies are supposed to be overseeing them, and the government, of course, has gotten involved, especially the right-wing nutty COINTEL types that are trying to run the country and prevent other countries from running themselves. It's a very funny book. I'm just going to read a few passages. I don't want to tell you too much more of the plot. In Pynchon, as you know, the plot isn't as important as realizing you're caught up in all these complexities that may be involved with one another. They may have some reason behind them. At the same time, when people start to go into these conspiracies and start to figure them out, they disappear. So people are constantly disappearing and reappearing and dying. And the mystery's not entirely solved. But some mysteries, unlike most of Pynchon's books, there is a sort of mystery. Some mysteries are solved at the end of this book. One of the many things I love about it, and I don't know if I said it well enough in the first part of this, is Pynchon's always good at writing about these kind of crazy ideas and these crazy landscapes, and he invents these hilarious organizations and histories and so forth. But this one's it's really anchored in New York City, and it's anchored in a love for Manhattan. Whether he's describing pizza parlors, or what one of the recurring images is taking the kids to and from school and going to school plays, it's clear this is Pynchon's real world is involved here. In many of his early books, particularly V, you can see he's learning all his stuff from Baedekers and from travel guides. This is really Pynchon's life, and he's writing about the real life that people live every day. Some of the people are kind of horrible, some are okay, most of them are like us. We've got some good and bad in us. And they try to take care of their kids. And that's the main issue with what's her name in this. I can never remember their names. Maxine Tarnow, she's a fraud investigator. She's a fraud investigator for hire who gets involved looking into all these things and gets involved. And her marriage, her husband has kind of disappeared, or he's broken up with her, and then they've gotten back together, and they're taking care of the kids. And at the heart of this book is Maxine's efforts to protect her kids from realizing what a pile of shit the world has turned into. Protecting them as long as you can. That's all we can do. I'm going to read, I think I read this passage before. One of the characters comes and says, I can't remember. The problem, there's so many characters that when they come back, you kind of forgot where they came from, and you forget what their connections are with one another, which is why rereading it helps. But you kind of got to reread it probably 3 times. I don't know if I'm going to live that long. At one point, one of the characters says, late capitalism is a pyramid racket on a global scale. They talk about Bernie Madoff. And real issues come up in and out of the book, which doesn't really happen in a lot of Pynchon books. Late capitalism is a pyramid racket on a global scale, the kind of pyramid you do human sacrifices up on top of. Meantime, getting the suckers to believe it's all going to go on forever. So the stock market's never going to stop going up, and that's for the suckers to believe. And God bless you, Thomas Pynchon. I wanted to read just a few random passages. There's so many I love. I just kept marking them. You see, this is all passages I'd like to read out loud. This is an example of, again, Horst. Her husband's name is Horst. And when she comes home, this is the real world where we all live in, which I don't always feel that way in many Pynchon novels. She comes home and Horst is trying to put together an IKEA shelves. Some IKEA shelves. We've all been there, guys. I'm sure women have been there too, but us guys feel like responsible. We think we should be able to put these things together. And there's a little paragraph about going to IKEA when it first kind of rears up from the ugly horizon in New York in the late 1990s. Page 298. Like millions of other men around the world, Horst hates the Swedish DIY giant. He and Maxine once blew a weekend looking for the branch in Elizabeth, New Jersey, located next to the airport, so the world's 4th richest billionaire can save on lading costs while the rest of us spend the day getting lost on the New Jersey Turnpike. Also, off it. At last, they arrived at a county-sized parking lot, and shimmering in the distance, a temple to, or museum of, a theory of domesticity, too alien for Horst fully to be engaged by. Cargo planes kept landing gently nearby. An entire section of the store was dedicated to replacing wrong or missing parts and fasteners, since with IKEA, this is not so exotic an issue. Inside the store proper, you walk forever from one bourgeois context, or, quote, room of the house, unquote, to another, along a fractal path that does its best to fill up the floor space available. Exits are clearly marked, but impossible to get to. There's not a boring sentence in the book. Horst is bewildered in a potentially violent sort of way. Look at this. A bar stool named Sven? Some old Swedish custom. The winter kicks in, weather gets harsh. After a while, you find yourself relating to the furniture in ways you didn't expect. Oh, sorry. Every paragraph is beautiful in this book. And never quite predictable. Never quite predictable. Is this one of... I can't remember some of these passages that I quoted. I picked, but I'm going to read them anyway. This is expression... They talk about 911, when 911 occurs. And after it occurs, the kind of shock on everybody in New York. And again, I can't think of a period of a book by Pynchon in which the real ugliness of the world kind of hits everybody at the same time. And at the same time, it seems to be part of all these other conspiracies that have been going on. And one of the characters, I forget even who these are now, they're talking to... Oh, it's Marge Keller. There's a kind of left-wingish character, and she's left-wingish. She's going after one of the big super billionaire guy. And she says to her audience, she says, there's always still the other thing. Our yearning. Our deep need for it to be true. Somewhere down at some shameful dark recess of the national soul, we need to feel betrayed, even guilty. So she's saying that we want to believe there's a conspiracy that knocked a very complicated conspiracy that knocked down these buildings and killed all these people. And it was run by somebody, and somebody was in control of it. And all the conspiracy theories that come up around 911. And she's saying that we need those theories. And we're hoping that something's true. Someone's in control. We need to feel betrayed, even guilty, as if it was us who created Bush and his gang, Cheney and Rove and Rumsfeld and Feith and the rest of them. Cheney, the man that's that family that our Democrats run around campaigning with. We who called down the sacred lighting of democracy, and then the fascist majority on the Supreme Court threw the switches, and Bush rose from the slab and began his rampage. And whatever happened then is on our ticket. So that whole thing about Bush winning the election, quote unquote, and that horrible mess he got us into, and the Democrats helped him get us into. We want to believe there's a reason behind it. Then they come across some other conspiracies about I'm reading these passages out of context because I can't remember some. This is the beginning of chapter 30 and page 327. This is the opening of the chapter 30. If you read nothing but the newspaper of record, i.e. the Times, which is not at its best days then, right? You might believe that New York City, like the nation, united in sorrow and shock, has risen to the challenge of global jihadism, joining a righteous crusade Bush's people are now calling the War on Terror. If you get to other sources, the internet, for example, you might get a different picture. Out in the vast, undefined anarchism of cyberspace among the millions of self-resonant fantasies, dark possibilities are beginning to emerge. So all the kind of fantasies, the collective fantasies, sometimes fragmented fantasies, sometimes the truth, sometimes variations of the truth, are starting to come out of this interweb, the internet, and of course at the same time, the government and the wealthiest people in the world are buying up this property as they are in the Deep Archer books, in the Deep Archer landscape. Here's another one, 336. These are about 911. Again, the only book I've read that actually talks about 911 and doesn't seem phony. This is about how because of the 911, the government stopped worrying about gangsters and the mob and the mafia. They started going after all these other, sometimes phantasms and sometimes real conspiracies. So September 11th turns out to be a mitzvah for the mob, Heidi. I didn't mean that. The day was a terrible tragedy, but it isn't the whole story. Can't you feel it, how everybody's regressing? 11th of September infantilized this country. It had a chance to grow up. Instead, it chose to default back to childhood. I'm in the street yesterday. Behind me are a couple of high school girls having one of these teenage conversations. So I was like, oh my God. And he's like, I didn't say I wasn't seeing her. And when I finally turned to look at them, here are these two women my own age, older, your age, who should know better, really, like trapped in a fucking time warp or something. The just idiocy that we've done with these phones and turned ourselves into just YouTube popping children. I don't want to read too many more. We're running out of time. You can't do bad. There's some ways that they're trying to read the Twin Towers as religious icons in it. What's the last passage I can read? I'm going to read just this last passage because this is near the end of the book. The central character who's basically a right-wing COINTELPRO type psychopath jackass who works for the government and who's been going through Central America and helping all these right-wing nuts kill people. This guy, Winch, I forget his name now. He and Maxine have a bit of a relationship, a frisson or whatever you want to call it. And he's dead. I'm sorry giving it away. He dies. And there's a kind of long period where she's trying to get used to what it means and if it means anything. And at one point she goes to a gym, a New York gym in the early 2000s. And I'll close in this last paragraph, which I think is so good. The beginning of page 40. There is a particular weirdness to be found on weekends in the evening in New York City health and fitness clubs, especially when economic times are sluggish. Unable anymore to bring herself to swim in the Desiree pool, that's where she used to go, this old, wealthy apartment building, like the Georgia, what's the one? It's a famous. It's an invented building for wealthy people and old New Yorkers that have a swimming pool at the top. So she doesn't go there anymore because somebody she knows was killed there. In the Desiree pool, which she believes to be cursed, Maxine has joined her sister Brooke's state-of-the-art health club, Mega Reps. The club is called Mega Reps, around the corner, but isn't quite used yet to this nightly spectacle of yups on treadmills, plodding to nowhere while watching CNN or the sports channels. I'm sorry, that's a sentence that describes America in the past 20 years. Riding their treadmills to nowhere. Laid-off dot-commers who aren't at strip clubs or absorbed into massively multiplayer online games, all running, rowing, lifting weights, mingling with body image obsessives, folks recuperating from dating disasters, others desperate enough tonight actually to be looking for company here instead of in bars. Worse, hanging around the snack section, which is where Maxine, coming in out of the strange kind of late winter rain that you can hear rattling lightly off your umbrella or raincoat, but when you look, nothing is getting wet, finds Marge Keller busy on her laptop, surrounded by muffin debris and a number of paper coffee cups she's using, much to the annoyance of the rest of the room, for ashtrays. Okay, that's a bit of a chaotic. As you can see, there's so many passages I wanted to read. I do think this is a wonderful, very funny, very moving in its way novel about trying to be in large way about trying to be a parent during this incredible nightmare that we haven't stopped living through. And I think it's almost a picture of where we were going before we were going there. All right, definitely read it if you haven't read Pynchon. This is a good way to start. This and it's hard to say. My three favorites are Inherent Vice, this, and Vineland, but probably this and Vineland are my two favorites for the personal juice that's in them. Okay, stay safe. Bye.